ending. So, uh, I'm sorry. And because it's not a time-bound course, and more or less, most of you have already completed Bhakti Shastri, and we are here just to learn to enhance our own practice of Krishna consciousness. I'm sure none of us are here just to get the details of Krishna consciousness, but we want to personally implement it in our practices. So, therefore, there is nothing wrong in hearing perspectives of very exalted Vaishnavas who have presented it in such lucid way. So, that is why I decided, okay, we are not running against time. Let us discuss whatever is there in the book. Um so, I hope this approach is all right. If you feel that it is too redundant, you can please let me know. Um, then we can definitely make necessary adjustments. If most devotees feel that it's becoming too redundant, no need to read so many commentaries. Just let's just discuss Bhaktivinoda Thakur's and move ahead. That is also fine. So you can definitely share your opinions either you can type in the chat box, or when we open up for question and answers and discussions, you can always share your viewpoints. So uh, for today we will continue with Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj commentary, but before that we will chant the verse once, and I hope you all received uh, the memorization shlokas. So whenever you feel inspired, you can always try to memorize those shlokas. I have also sent you the PowerPoint, the every verse translation also. So it will help you meditate. And by the time we reach those verses, you already have a fairly good understanding of those verses. So you know what to look forward to. So we will start and we will recite this one verse together, and then we will see what Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj has to share about this. गुरौ गोष्ठे गोष्ठालयिषु सुजने भूसुरगणे स्वमन्त्रे श्रीनाम्नि व्रजनवयुवद्वन्द्वशरणे सदा दम्भं हित्वा पुरुरतिमपूर्वामतितराम् अये स्वन्तर्भ्रातश्चटुभिरभियाचे धृतपदा Aye Swantar Bhrataha. Oh, my dear mind, oh, my dear brother, Sada Dambam Hiptva. Please give up this Damba. Please give up this coverings of Maya, and Kuru Ratim Apurva Matitaram, and develop an unprecedented excessive attraction to Gurau, Goshte, Goshtalayishu, Sujane, Bhusuragane, Swamantre, Shrinamni, Vrajanavayuva, Dvandvasharane. These 8 things which we have already discussed. So try to develop an unprecedented excessive attachment to these 8 things, which is only possible if you give up the coverings of Maya, which is addressed here as Dambam. Even though the literal meaning of Dambam is pride, here uh, that is just one aspect of that pride that we understand is just one aspect of it, but there are many other aspects of pride that we saw: hypocrisy, uh, crookedness, and so on. And he says, Dhrita Pada, I hold your feet and I beseech you with sweet words, because what we are going to get in return if the mind cooperates, as Bhagavad Gita says, Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmai vatmana jitah anatmanastu shatrutve vartet atmaiva shatruvat. That the mind becomes the friend of that person with whom the mind wishes to cooperate. But if the mind wishes to go on a strike, um, then we are in deep trouble. So therefore, he is trying to cajole the mind by falling at its feet, because what he is going to get in return if the mind chooses to cooperate is something extremely valuable. So therefore, he says, "Oh, my dear mind, please cooperate, and uh, in return, you will get something very, very valuable like that." So, so Srila Sachidanand Swami Maharaj, first he discusses on this theme of giving up pride, how we can give up pride. So pride here is dhamba, not just pride, many aspects of this dhamba. Maharaj says, after some faith has awakened, how do we become fully Krishna conscious? So after the preliminary faith, Adav Shraddha, how do we become fully Krishna conscious? Which means how do we move from Shraddha to Prema? So Maharaj says, Raghunath Das Goswami says, first of all, we must give up Damba. So Maharaj says, Damba is a word that means deceit, religious hypocrisy, arrogance, and pride. So we have to give that up. So when you want to start Raghunath Das Goswami's guidebook, you have to first of all learn to give up pretense, hypocrisy, and deceit. So Maharaj does not say you have to give up pretense, hypocrisy, and deceit, which may be an impossible thing. We all might immediately start disconnecting from the Zoom call. He says we all must learn to give up. And who is going to teach us how to learn? Who is going to teach us how to give up pretense, hypocrisy, and deceit? Raghunath Das Goswami himself is going to teach that. As long as we pretend to be someone we are not, we cannot enter the path of Raghunath Das Goswami, which means we have to at least be convinced that I can't continue to live a life like this. Um, Even though wanting to put up a show in front of others, wanting to show oneself to be more advanced than others, is a it is an urge which is very, very difficult to give up. Uh, but here, at least Maharaj is indicating that we must be convinced that it is a habit which is worthy to be kicked out of our heart, and we must be convinced that I want to endeavor in that direction to give up that uh, unwanted urge. Mm. Of course, that the time between wanting that urge to go away and the urge actually going away, there may be a time lag, but that is okay. But one should at least be convinced that I don't want to live with this pretending attitude. So as long as we pretend to be someone we are not, we cannot enter the path of Raghunath Das Goswami. We only hurt ourselves by keeping up such a farce. If you want to advance, give up your pride before Krishna makes an arrangement for your pride to be taken. So, which might be very, uh, when Krishna chooses to take it away, then it may come in a very unpleasant way actually. So, if we ourselves endeavor in that direction, then the path will become little more bearable and easy. According to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a dangerous moment in the life of a devotee is when the thought comes, I am a Vaishnava, I am a devotee. So when he starts thinking that I am very advanced, then his downfall starts. He says that if we think we are Vaishnava, then we shall look forward to receiving respect from others, wanting to be glorified, wanting to be respected from others. If the desires for fame and reputation pollute our hearts, then we shall certainly descend into hell. Hell means, it's not that everyone who is tormented by the desire for fame, he, it's not a karmic reaction. Uh, to go to hell is not a karmic reaction for one who uh, wants to become famous. So wanting to become famous, endeavoring to become famous in itself is not an It's not a bad karma which will push one to hell. That's not what Maharaj is meaning here. Because many times the Shastras do talk about, you know, going to hell. So sometimes when it is used in the context of devotees, like for example, it is mentioned in Harinam Chintamani that the result of Vaishnava Aparadh is that one goes to hell. Uh, that does not literally mean that um, if we have committed a Vaishnava Aparadh, we will land up in hell. That's not what it means. Many times this phrase is used in different contexts. Here it means if you continue committing offenses, then you will go outside the realm of devotional service and then you will fall within the realm of karma. So, which means you will go to hell means you will be held responsible for every act of yours, and if it is bad, if it is karmically bad, then you will be sent to hell. Otherwise, a devotee for any of his misdeeds will not go to hell. That is very clearly mentioned in the sixth canto of Shrimad Bhagavatam. Even though he may, due to past bad habits, he may fall into some abominable activities, Krishna will punish him, Krishna will give him some this thing, but that punishment will never be um, hellish. It will not be a hellish punishment. So that's what here. It's not that if we have the desire to become famous or become very well reputed, it's not that we will descend to hell. That's not mentioned in a literal sense like that. Like we say, Kaivalyam Narakayate, Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate. Prabodhananda Saraswati says. He says, for a devotee, Kaivalyam, impersonal liberation, Narakayate, is like hell. It is not literally hell, it is like hell. He would rather go to hell and get an opportunity to engage his senses in Krishna consciousness than to go merge into the Brahma Jyoti and lose that opportunity to engage his senses in Krishna's service. That is the meaning actually. So Kaivalyam Narakayate does not mean uh, actually Brahma Jyoti is like hell. That's not what it means. So here when Maharaj says, if the desires for fame and reputation pollute our heart, then we shall certainly descend into hell. Which means for a devotee, if he is walking away from the lotus feet of Krishna, it is hellish. And what makes us walk away from the lotus feet of Krishna is this desire for fame, reputation, and all these things. So in that sense, it has to be understood. Therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks of this dangerous moment, the thoughts that we are Vaishnavas, that we have done vratas, and that we have finished extra rounds for Kartik, or we have distributed extra books, or given a well acclaimed lecture. Of course, Purushottam Mass is going on, and Kartik is coming very soon. So please don't feel that Maharaj is discouraging any of us from performing any extra vows, taking some extra vows for the pleasure of Krishna. That's certainly not what Maharaj is indicating here. But if we think that I am very great because, I chose to chant so many extra rounds, but this other devotee during Kartik, he did not chant any extra rounds. So I am great, I am more advanced. If we start thinking like that, then that's a problem. That's what he's indicating. Not that one should not endeavor to um, take some additional vows during the month of Kartik or Purushottam Mas. They are definitely very much recommended, and they are well rewarded by Krishna also. If so, then we don't run to Krishna, we run in the opposite direction. See, Maharaj, exactly that's what he's indicating. And that is what is hellish. So Raghunath Das Goswami's initial instruction is to first give up all pride. So first give up means first endeavor to give up all pride. Then comes giving up pride. Because if our bhajan becomes kevala kaitava, fully cheating, then we cannot progress. So what do we do when, so someone may say, Prabhuji, I am not trying, but somehow respect comes my way. What can I do? It's not that I am hankering after respect, but people naturally come and respect me. Uh, so what should I do? Maharaj quotes Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He says, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that when we are glorified, we should immediately offer the glorification to our spiritual master and the previous acharyas. So pass it on to whom it belongs actually. It belongs to the acharyas, it belongs to the spiritual master, pass it on to them. For example, if someone says, you gave a nice lecture, you should respond, oh, I just repeated some points that I learned from my spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. I cannot really accept your praise. That should be our mode, because that is true. We have just repeated what the acharyas have given, so we cannot accept that praise. But if you say, no, no, I have not just repeated what the acharyas have given, I have spoken many things from my own and from my own understanding, which means that that kind of class is not fit to be heard by anyone. What to speak of praising? So we are supposed to present whatever the acharyas have presented. We are not supposed to sit and speculate whatever we think is right or we think is wrong. So if we are repeating a good Vaishnava lecture, means where there is presentation of the perspectives given by the acharyas. And if we are presenting the perspectives of acharyas, then what credit can we take? Nothing. So if you say, no, I did not just present what the acharyas have given, then the question is, then the point is, then is your lecture worth listen? Should one listen to your lecture at all? Because if you are not presenting acharya's perspective, then you are presenting your own mind's perspective, your own intelligence perspective, so which is not acceptable. Even someone of the stature of Vallabha Bhatta or Vallabhacharya, when he presented that, oh, I have written a commentary without referring to Sridhar Swami's commentary, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was completely disgusted actually. He said, you know, only a prostitute would give up her master like that. He completely uh, insulted. He was very disgusted with that presentation by Vallabhacharya, Vallabha. So, for example, if someone says, you gave a nice lecture, you should respond, I just repeated some points that I learned from my spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. I cannot accept your praise. I recently glorified one devotee who did exceptional service, and the devotee said something very pleasing. Maharaj is telling. He said, I had good helpers. I didn't do anything. So I had a good team. They all helped me. I didn't do it alone. Immediately when praise comes our way, we should deflect it to where it should go. And it usually goes to the previous acharyas. Like that. So, and that's a very pleasant thing actually, because that's where it belongs, and they will pass it on to their past, previous acharyas. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said this on his 60th Vyasa Puja. So he said, think that the glorifications offered to us really belong to the previous acharyas. Not just think, but this is reality actually. We can accept the glorifications and offer all to them. Think, those of you who glorify me now are all great personalities. What you are giving to me, I am not qualified to accept. So today I am offering it to my Guru. Like that he says. So what you are giving me, I am not qualified to accept. This is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentioning to his own disciples. He says, I am not fit to accept any of these things. I am just passing it on to my acharyas. That was, this is a perfected devotee who had descended directly from the spiritual world, and this is how he is showing by his example. If we don't use this transparent technique, the glorification can kill us. If we don't become transparent and let the waters of praise continue on and flow where they belong, then our pipe will burst and blow into pieces and create mishaps. So uh, if the pipe is not uh, it is not allowed to flow, if there is a blockage, and if the water flow from the top has not stopped, it keeps on gushing, and if it cannot displace that obstruction in the pipe, then the pipe will end up bursting actually. And that's what he says. So glorification is like that flowing water, and if you accept it for yourself, then your pipe of grace will burst. That's what he says. Uh, so you will not experience that grace anymore because the pipe will burst. So if we don't become transparent and let the waters of praise continue on and flow where they belong, then our pipe will burst and blow into pieces and create mishaps. My dear devotees, this typical Sachinandan Maharaj style. My dear devotees, between us and the Lord is a mountain of aham mameti, the foundations of pride. So Maharaj says that that's why we are not able to see the Lord, interact with the Lord, realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because there is this mountain of aham mameti. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that I am covered by a curtain of Maya. That's why people are not able to see me. Prideful thoughts create samskaras and aggressions from which our whole swabhava is formed. So when we get prideful thoughts, it keeps on, and if we keep on meditating on such thoughts, it creates very deep rooted samskaras, and those deep rooted samskaras make our complete personality. It creates our personality. This is also true with praise and respect that is shown physically. For example, in India, people touch the feet of those they hold in high esteem, and when someone accepts this, they can fall ill because they take the karma which can burn health and mind. So if we are not qualified, and if we are allowing someone to show us undue respect, like someone is touching our feet and we accept it, and we don't uh, uh, we don't say anything, we allow them to keep on touching our feet, then Maharaj says that one can actually, if one does not have the capacity to digest it, he can fall sick both mentally and physically. One should think, this person touching my feet is thinking I am a specialist in bhakti, or because I have white skin, but I am really a mercy case of my spiritual master. So Maharaj is telling, this is how we should think. He is touching my feet thinking that I am a very elevated person, but I know what is reality. The reality, I have nothing to show other than the mercy of my spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada, whatever good this person sees in me, it is by your mercy, your investment on me. It belongs to you. That's how one should think. Whatever good he is seeing in me, he is actually seeing a manifestation of your mercy. If you remove your mercy, uh, then I am nothing. There is nothing that is fit enough for anyone to show any respect. Hmm. This was the feeling of Arjuna also. When uh, Basman Hutam Kuhakaraddam Ivoptam Ushyam, he said, now that Krishna is gone, uh, I am that same Rati, I am the same charioteer, I have the same chariot, I have the same horses, I have the same Gandiva bow. But what to speak of defeating other Maharathis, I could not even save the queens of Krishna from these infidel cowherdmen. So he, not in a very depressed way, he was not depressed because he was defeated. He was depressed because he had lost the association of Krishna. But he clearly said, look, everything was Krishna's empowerment. When that empowerment was taken, I was nothing. I could not even um, save the queens. From what to speak of Kshatriyas, from simple cowherdmen, I could not save them like that. And then we can really see how the karma goes through us and does not make us sick. So Maharaj, I mean, definitely, I mean, this, the way he is presenting it, there is a lot of realization that is coming from that actually, you know. So if you allow the praise to pass on to the past acharyas, then Maharaj says, then you will see that how that glorification is not affecting you physically and mentally. It is just passing through you, and it is not, Padma Patram Ivambasa. It is just like a water drop on top of a lotus leaf. Huh? It is there, but it is not touching. But if it stops at our feet, then we can become very ill, like that. So that's what Maharaj has very beautifully presented on this aspect of uh, various aspects. He does speak about Damba as being deceit, hypocrisy, pride, arrogance, etc. But he was more or less focused here on the direct meaning of Damba, which is pride, and he has elaborated on these points. So we will now pause for a few minutes. If there are any quick comments, questions based on what we have discussed now, or if you would like to share about the format that we are following, uh, whether should we, are you comfortable continuing in the same format, or you want a format change? Any of these things, if you would like to share, you can please raise your hands. Sangeeta Mataji, I am unmuting you. You can please speak, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Sangeeta Mataji, I have unmuted you. Can you please unmute yourself, Mataji?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Prabhuji, you mentioned just now about someone touching your feet, and if the person is not qualified, you cannot digest someone's karma. But someone, is bending but does not touch your feet. Is that the same thing?
I mean, it's not about whether touching or not touching. It is in what mood we uh, we respond to it. We
Acha.
may so that's how, sometimes we may have to allow that person to touch our feet also.
Ha.
So it may be socially improper. It may be little. It may sound little rude to run away from that. It,
Yes.
so I mean, at sometimes we may have to allow that person to touch our feet. But the
Correct.
point
Correct.
is, internally, how are we going to process it? How are we processing it internally? That is
Huh.
the most important thing. That's what is indicated here,
Okay.
rather than.
So, how do we deal with that, Prabhu?
That's what we discussed now.
Acha.
Krishna, I mean, he is seeing something good in me, but what he is not realizing is this is all mercy of my Guru.
Okay. Okay.
So, uh, so, so, my dear Guru Maharaj, all this belongs to you. Kindly accept it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not able to uh, deny this act of his because of some social considerations. But
Okay.
kindly accept this. This truly belongs to you, like that.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you
Hare
very much. It clarifies my mind. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Krishna Prabhu, I am unmuting you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
I just want to know whether this response to such a respect which comes in our way, should it be verbally expressed or internally we can feel? Is it required to verbally
It
expressing
depends on.
verbally is also required, no? Other than how we feel inward.
It depends, Prabhuji. It depends on the circumstance. It depends on the relationship that you have with that person already. It depends on his spiritual advancement also. So it depends on many things. Sometimes it may be appropriate to just internally process it and leave it there. Sometimes it would appropriate to actually express that it truly belongs to my guru. Sometimes uh, you know so, and it also depends, if he is spiritually uh, advanced enough to understand and appreciate those sentiments, you can do it. But sometimes if he is not sufficiently spiritually advanced to even appreciate such sentiments, you can just silently accept what he is doing and internally offer it to the guru. So it is all
Okay, Prabhu.
context. Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you.
So, Madhav Hari Prabhu, I am unmuting you. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Dandavad Prabhuji, this is Madhavi Gopidasji.
Dandavad.
Prabhuji, you had mentioned that regarding what your suggestion was. So, first of all, I want to say about that please continue this pattern, because if alone we have to study, we will never go into so many commentaries and we will never have the chance to understand that. So, along with in your able guidance, we are at least able to study such things in a very broader perspective. So please continue that. And I had one question regarding the last class what we do. So can I ask that?
Yes, Mataji. Yes.
So when I was reading, I was listening to the recording. There are different perspective of Uttamadhikari and Madhyamadhikari from different scriptures.
Correct.
So what I was trying to understand is how practically this knowledge helps me as a devotee of Madhyamadhikari, Uttamadhikari. Like how we have learned that in Nectar of Instruction that how we should deal with Madhyamadhikari and Uttamadhikari and how we should deal with the Kanishtadhikari. So that is one thing. But if there are so many perspectives, then which perspective should I, as a devotee, I should choose while practically implementing it?
See, actually, we have to, if we understand the context of each of these perspectives, then we will understand the application also. Like, for example, when you are understanding Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, so there, the discussion about Uttamadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, and Kanishtadhikari comes more in terms of understanding one's own position in Vaidhi sadhana, in the practice of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. So more as a self-evaluation, this thing. And when NOI talks about these three adhikaris, it is in the context of how you reciprocate. So from that perspective, it gives a slightly different presentation. And in this Manasiksha commentary, when Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, this presentation of Kanishtadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, and Uttamadhikari is presented in a way that we appreciate whom we should associate with to enhance our faith in the process towards our goal. Like, for example, even though there may be very elevated Vaishnavas in other Vaishnava Sampradaya, but still, maximum duration of time we should associate with Vaishnavas who practice our path only, because that will only nourish the right kind of sentiments that we are trying to nourish through our practice. So in that perspective, so each Shastra presents, but the context and perspective is slightly different. If you understand that, then you will be able to understand the application also.
Okay.
Okay.
While reciprocation, we should follow the Nectar of Instruction context, and while other.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, in one sense, definitely one thing that is common in all these literatures is that definitely the Uttamadhikari is most qualified, Madhyamadhikari is intermediately qualified, and the Kanishtadhikari is less qualified. So But when you understand with uh, the little bit of nuances of presentation of each shastra, then you will say that, oh, Bhagavatam says that the Prakrita Bhakta, or the Kanishta Adhikari is outside the realm of bhakti, which means you should not have maitri with him. Prema maitri kripa upeksha. It says that tad adineshu maitri. You are supposed to have friendship with Vaishnavas. But if you understand the Bhagavatam explanation of Kanishta Adhikari, he is not in the strictest sense, he cannot be considered as a Vaishnava. So his association should not be taken. So like that, if you get into little details, try to understand the subject matter little more deeply, then you will be able to understand what is the correct application of that principle.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So I see one hand up. It says Acer, but the hand has gone down. I'm not very sure if I'm supposed to. Okay. So is there any final comment, question before we move on to the next theme presented by Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj? Okay. I don't see any hands up. So we will move on to the next theme that Maharaj discusses here. So the next theme that he discusses is developing attraction to Guru. So how do we develop attraction to Guru? So this is one thing which we all want to learn. So because Maharaj has spoken about pride or damba, so now the next question is how to give up this pride. So Raghunath Das Goswami says, develop unprecedented love for the Guru. So that's the first thing he says. Gurau, he starts with the Siksha Guru and Diksha Guru. Gurau, Kuru, Ratim, Apurvam, Atitaram. Develop an unprecedented, intense affection for the Guru. So he says, how do we develop love for our spiritual master or for Srila Prabhupada? So how are we going to do this? How are we supposed to develop this love towards our spiritual master or Srila Prabhupada? So Maharaj says, we can shout Prabhupada until our vocal cords ache, but our mind can still shout me, me, me with the same strength. So even though we are shouting Prabhupada, Prabhupada from our Guru Maharaj externally, internally we may be craving for personal attention. We may want other people to notice us and give us appreciation like that. To cure this problem, we should meditate on something very nice about the spiritual master that is actually true. So based on our observation or what we have heard from our spiritual master, we should internally try to meditate on something very nice which we have observed or we have heard and we know for sure that it is true. So in that sense, we start developing that, then we meditate on with appreciation, we meditate on that particular good quality of our Guru. So then it takes our thoughts away from the self-centered thoughts. Krishna is the original Guru, the Adi Guru, who reaches the conditioned souls through the Vyashti Gurus. Vyashti Gurus are the individual Gurus who are, Krishna is the original Guru. And all the other Gurus are manifestations of that Guru Tattva, which is essentially Krishna only. So now the question is, how do these individual personalities become carriers of Krishna's mercy? So how the Gurus have become carriers of Krishna's mercy? How have they become such vehicles for carrying Krishna's mercy? Maharaj says, it is because Krishna invests his Karuna Shakti in the spiritual master. So Krishna invests his Karuna Shakti because the distribution rights. So Krishna's mercy is there, but Krishna does not choose whom to distribute. he gives the distribution rights to the Vaishnavas. So the Vaishnavas can choose whom to distribute this Krishna's mercy to. This is the way Krishna chooses to show his mercy. When water is touched by cold, it becomes ice. So when Krishna shows his compassion for the fallen souls, he becomes Guru Tattva. Or in the sense, he expands as Guru Tattva. Or you can say, he empowers a living entity to carry that Gurutva, that compassion in the form of a Guru. Of course, he would empower a qualified living entity only. He will not empower any living entity. He will empower a qualified living entity. So which living entity would be that? That living entity which has voluntarily chosen bhakti, voluntarily practiced bhakti, and voluntarily has become very much benefited by that bhakti, and he voluntarily feels very grateful and he wants to share it with others. So when Krishna sees that, Krishna, respecting the free will of that living entity, empowers that living entity to carry that message. So Krishna does not induce that desire to spread that message of Krishna in the living entity. When the living entity, out of his natural gratitude, when he feels that this message has to be shared, this mercy has to be shared with all living entities, when the living entity gets that desire, then Krishna says, okay, that is your free will, so I will empower you. Ye yatamam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. So this is one principle that Krishna never breaks uh, uh, anytime. This principle of reciprocation. The way the living entity wants to deal with Krishna, Krishna will exactly deal with that living entity in that way, like that. So Maharaj says, I always like to say that I was a dark end on a dark stone on a dark night in a dark universe. No light in my life. But my spiritual master found me and saved me by bringing me in contact with this process of Krishna consciousness. So we should always feel that gratitude to, uh, uh, to to all those devotees who inspired us in Krishna consciousness, brought us to Krishna consciousness, nurtured us in Krishna consciousness, and helped us out when we were struggling in Krishna consciousness, and who are still helping us while we are struggling in Krishna consciousness. And if we take a notebook and pen and write down all those instances, then we will realize that we are actually products of compassion, grace, and mercy actually. So therefore, that's what he's indicating, that. So there was no light in my life, but my spiritual master found me and saved me by bringing me in contact with the process of Krishna consciousness. It is simply self-deception to call to the Lord and try to surrender to God by trying to jump over Sri Gurudev. If we think that I don't need Guru anymore, then that is certainly not a sign of advancement. It is a big misconception. One may think that, oh, now I am feeling lot of favorable feelings towards Vrindavan and Brajavasis. Now I don't think I need a guru. Then that is the biggest misconception actually. Because when one actually becomes qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti, then he does not feel that there is no need for guru, but his relationship with the guru becomes all the more intimate, and he all the more feels that the guru is absolutely needed. This we will see in the next verse actually, that how the relationship of the living entity with the guru, when he moves from Vaidhi sadhana to Raganuga sadhana becomes all the more intimate and powerfully strong actually. He feels all the more dependent on his guru. So while practicing Vaidhi sadhana, the living entity sees his spiritual master as the transparent via media of Krishna's mercy, like we saw, like Maharaj had mentioned. But when one reaches the stage of Raganuga, when one becomes qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti, not only does he see his spiritual master as a transparent via media of Krishna's mercy in the Guru Sishya Parampara, but he additionally also starts seeing that spiritual master as a very intimate associate of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, who is capable of catching hold of my hand and engaging me in their service. So he sees it is this personality who is going to catch hold of my hand and take me to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna and engage me in their service. So, so that way, the 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 relationship becomes much more intense actually. So it is simply self-deception to call to the Lord and try to surrender to God by trying to jump over Sri Gurudev, who is the tangible form of the Lord's presently occurring mercy before us. We can go to God and say, God, 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 and tell him so many things. But if we stand before our spiritual master, it is easily seen what is real and what is unreal. So he says, yeah, we may have very solid feelings towards the Supreme Lord, but when we go and stand in front of our spiritual master, we may start finding some mistakes, some faults, which means literally our feelings towards Krishna are actually not the real feelings. Because the real feeling is uh, the, 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 the real feelings towards Krishna uh, can be intensely felt along with uh, the similar feelings towards the Guru. So we see the Guru as the irreplaceable means um, to engage us in Krishna, Radha and Krishna's service. So absolutely irreplaceable. That is why यथा देवे तथा गुरौ तस्यैते कथिता ह्यर्थः प्रकाशन्ते महात्मनः यस्य देवे पराभक्तिर यथा देवे तथा गुरौ. So it is mentioned that one should have the same kind of respect and feeling that one has towards Krishna, that same feeling to be reposed on the Guru also. Tasyaite katita hyartah prakashante mahatmanah. Only for such a person, he can actually the real imports of the scriptures will be revealed. Okay, so imagination doesn't work when our spiritual master is before us. We can't cheat ourselves. It is magical. If we turn to our spiritual master with the sincere desire to be helped, we will see how the Karuna Shakti becomes activated and something wonderful will happen. So Maharaj is telling, why don't you try it out? Just go in front of the spiritual master or his photograph or his vigraha, and with sincere desire turn to him in a helpless way, and Maharaj says, you just do it and you will see how the Karuna Shakti will start flowing. But then the real question comes, now what to do if faith in Guru is lost? This is a real question. I mean, this is reality. We cannot dodge. For some real reasons, in some of our lives it may happen that we lose our faith in the Guru. Okay, what do we do? Of course, this is a very big subject matter. This is discussed in detail in other books also, but let us stick to what Maharaj has written here, because otherwise it will be a very long discussion. So Maharaj says very beautifully, I want to recommend to you, if you can't worship your Diksha Guru nicely, go to Prabhupada or look for a Shiksha Guru. So here Maharaj is telling for real reasons. If there has been a fall down or something like that, um, or then he says that if you can't worship your Diksha Guru nicely, then go to Prabhupada or look for a Siksha Guru. But take to this principle because Krishna has invested his mercy Shakti in his devotees. Uh, so understand that you can that we can become um, um, a recipient of that mercy only if we connect ourselves to the Guru Sishya Parampara. We cannot skip and jump over even one uh, one rung in that ladder. We can't skip our Guru and go directly to Prabhupada also. That should not be our this thing. Only in very rare cases where there is a uh, real confirmed fall down or something like that. Only in such cases, even in such cases, he says, then look out for a Siksha Guru or a different Diksha Guru. Mm. And then you can always connect yourself to Prabhupada as the primary Siksha Guru. That is always there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells us how we should see our Guru. He says, do not see the Guru merely as a great sage, but rather see him as your intimate and well-wishing friend. So he is not just a very exalted personality, but that exalted personality really wants you to progress in spiritual life, and he is willing to sacrifice for your progress in spiritual life. So that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that you should see your Guru in that way. Oh, here is a person who is not only great, but he is willing, but this great personality is willing to sacrifice his time, his energy, his prayers, uh, um, and everything. Uh, he is willing to invest it uh, in my betterment in Krishna consciousness. Hmm? So Maharaj says, I personally have come to believe that this understanding is very important in our discipleship. So Maharaj said this is very important. I mean, this is something which uh, we have to actually meditate upon. He says that this will take our discipleship to the next level. So what is that? Um, to not just see the Guru as a very great personality, but to also see him as our important well-wishing friend, intimate and well-wishing friend. So when we start seeing that, uh, then that relationship with the Guru develops. Hmm? Otherwise, as Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. So one can develop that peace, not just by knowing that Krishna is Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam. Uh, he is the person who accepts the oblations that are offered in the yagya and gives me results in return. Or he is the one who accepts my tapo, so I have to please him if I want to get something in return. Or he is Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he is the Paramatma sitting in everyone's heart, so if I offend him, he may hurt me, not like that. But finally he says, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. But when you understand that uh, this person who is the controller of everything, he is the best well-wishing friend of everyone, including us, including myself. So when we understand that this great person is willing to actually um, uh, give everything that he has to me uh, for my own betterment. So when we start seeing that well-wishing nature of Krishna, then uh, actually uh, it creates that intimacy. That is why there are so many qualities that Krishna has. His beauty, the way he plays his flute, the and so many other things, so many other qualities are there. His greatness, his ability to control everything in this material world, in the spiritual world also. But ultimately, uh, we may admire all those qualities at the most. We may at the most admire those qualities, but we may not. Uh, it may not necessarily create us attraction towards that person. Hmm? Ultimately, it is Krishna's Bhakta Vatsalya, his deep affection for his deep affection for the devotees, that he is willing to share whatever he has with the devotees. That understanding that aspect of Krishna is actually develops. It helps us develop affection towards Krishna. So otherwise, it will only create admiration. Like for example, if you see a big sports player like a sports person like Sachin Tendulkar, or whatever, or a big cinema star, or whatever, uh, we may, or a big scientist. mm, so we may feel like very we may feel that awe and reverence. We may feel lot of respect towards them, admiration towards them. And if we look at our own parents, they may be very simple people. Uh, they may not be well read like that person. They may not be athletically very gifted like this person. uh, they may not be earning millions of rupees like this other person. So we may not have that kind of admiration, but just the fact that we know that these two people, my father and mother, they are my genuine well wishers. So we will give our life. We admire Sachin Tendulkar or Amitabh Bachchan or whomever it is, but we will not give our life for them. We will give our life for our parents only, because we have experienced that affection. Even though, from greatness perspective, they may not be that great, that greatly accomplished, but still, uh, because they have invested their affection in us, uh, then that creates that gratitude, that we become willing to invest our life. huh? we, we are very eager to establish a relationship and maintain that relationship and preserve that relationship. Hmm. So the same thing is with the guru only. He says, look, for so many years you have seen your guru as a very great personality, which is very good, which is very important also. But you should start seeing your guru not just as a great personality. Now you should start seeing him as your greatest well-wisher. As Prabhupada used to write, your ever well-wisher, like that. So because that will take the relationship from the platform of admiration to actually affection. So that is very important. We can't just be admiring our guru. We should have affectionate feelings towards the guru, and that is true with Krishna also. We need to come close, Maharaj says. And of course, the previous line I will read again. Maharaj says his own experience. I personally have come to believe. The phrase have come to believe means uh, I have tried it, practiced it, and over a period of time, this practice has given me the realization that this understanding is very important in our discipleship. So we can't just see him as a very great personality. We must see him as the well-wisher and actually turn that admiration into affection. We need to come close. See, in that case, when we see that well-wishing aspect of our spiritual master, even if that spiritual master may not be spiritually extremely accomplished also, but if we see that he is our well-wisher, then the same principle applies. Just like our parents may not be very, very exalted or exalted at all, but we are willing to uh, preserve that relationship with them and give our lives to them for the sole reason that they are our well-wishing friends. So therefore, he says that this is very important. We need to come close. If the guru is an abstract concept for us, we won't have that heartfelt connection where we can tell him everything. So if the guru is something very abstract, oh, he is great, he is great, he is great, then how are we going to reveal our heart to him? And we won't call upon him like we call to a friend when we are in trouble. So he says that when we are in trouble, we should naturally feel like calling our guru. I mean, we can't artificially do it, but this mood has to be nurtured. Huh? This has to be nurtured, and we have to constantly, hear from the guru, hear about the guru, and also meditate on this principle that he is my well-wisher, he is my well-wisher, he has accepted my karma, and he has delivered me from the cycle of karma. So, uh, how is it possible if he is not my well-wisher? Why would he do it? So when we meditate on this, then we get the impetus to establish a relationship with our guru, and that to an intimate relationship, not a formal relationship like that. Okay, so we have come to an end of this theme of developing rati towards guru. So at this point of time, I will pause for a few minutes to see if there are any quick comments, questions, discussions. You can please raise your hands. I saw Subir Prabhu, you had your hands up. Did you have a question or was it by mistake? I don't know. So if someone has any question, you can please raise your hands and I will unmute you and we can discuss. Radha Damodar Prabhu, I am unmuting you, Prabhu. You can please ask. Hare Krishna. Radha Damodar Prabhu. Hari Bol. We are not able to hear you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhuji.
Please accept my Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
In the notes by commentary by Sachinandan Maharaj, he says, do not see the Guru as merely a great sage, but rather see him as your intimate and well-wishing friend.
Correct.
So when we start seeing the Guru as intimate, well-wishing friend, we may develop contempt also, isn't it?
Yeah, but that is not in that kind of a very familiar way.
Okay.
So someone great can also have, like, if we of course, that's why I said this this has to organically happen. We cannot prematurely start thinking like that.
Okay.
It has to organically happen, and a real it's not a mental adjustment or an imagination that he is recommending here. This is actually something, a feeling which needs to be cultivated and nurtured and organic over a period of time that this actually develops.
Okay, so all we have to do is to desire it.
To desire it and believe in it. Actually, start believing that yes, if he was not my well-wishing friend, why would he accept my karma? And and he is speaking everything. He is giving all the advice. He's he's creating a system for protection of devotees. It is all because he has that well-wishing nature.
Right. We believe it, but sometimes we don't desire to get closer to him because we always look at him with awe and reverence.
Correct.
So that we have to give up.
On reverence can be there, but at the same time, like for example, even in relationship with parents or any other, between an elder brother or between siblings also, there can be affection, but it could be some relationships could be affectionate and filled with on reverence. Some could be affectionate and little more informal also. So that is fine. but you can't say that where there is lack of personal intimacy, there is no affection. It's not like that. So you can have
Okay.
affection without that kind of personal intimacy also, or in some
Okay.
cases, both parties may be comfortable with that level of personal intimacy also.
Okay.
So like that.
Right, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Subir Prabhu, I'm unmuting you, Prabhu. You can please ask.
Hare Krishna, Dhanut Pranam, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes, you are.
Prabhuji, my question is like you were mentioning in your class about paying gratitude and to devotees who have brought us into Krishna conscious movement.
Mhm.
And regarding that, I had a question that there are certain devotees like who gave us Krishna consciousness in the early days,
Mhm.
and now they somehow or the other, by the plan of Krishna, they left ISKCON
Mhm.
and they went to some like Gaudiya Mutt, and they are following
Mhm.
the Bhakti movement,
Mhm.
and we still have great regard for them. But
Mhm.
how should we, how should be our dealings with them in a way that we are able to safeguard ourselves, and like we have a deep gratitude for them, we respect them with from our heart, but
Mhm.
still, like, to what extent should we associate with them, or if they call us, what should be our approach
Yeah,
while dealing with those devotees?
very, very, very wonderful question you have asked, and it is very relevant. And currently, at this stage of my spiritual life, I am going through one such situation. So I can just
Mm,
share, what
yes,
I'm trying to do.
yes,
So when I was in the United States, there
yes.
was one devotee,
Mm,
very, very well-read devotee.
mm,
Um, of course, we both come from a Sri Vaishnav background, but
mhm,
at that time, I was like very, very new to Krishna consciousness. I had
mhm,
just started chanting 16 rounds, and this devotee, he had been practicing for a long time, and he
mm,
was so well read. He had read the Sandarbhas, writings of the other acharyas, and everything.
mm.
Um, and he gave me a lot of uh, you know insights,
Inside.
and also when I was in practical going through practical issues, he helped me
Mm,
a lot actually, and I developed solid gratitude towards him, but eventually
mm,
his search for a guru did not fructify within ISKCON. So
mhm,
he moved back to his Sri Vaishnav roots, and he
mm,
accepted a guru in
mm,
the Sri Vaishnav Sampradaya.
mm,
But the problem was that along with that, he had also developed certain philosophical incompatibility with Srila Prabhupada's teachings.
mhm, mhm,
So recently, because he had moved back to uh, Sri
Sampradaya.
Vaishnavism, uh,
Mm,
I knew it. I knew it, but still, I tried to contact him for almost 10 years. He didn't get back get back in touch
mm,
with me because
mhm,
he didn't want to disturb my faith. Because
mm,
I saw him uh, as a very very as a role model actually, as a role model, and as a guide, and almost like a Siksha Guru, you can say.
mm,
So he didn't want to shake that faith. But
mm,
after 10 years, he contacted me back, and just
mm,
recently we spoke. But then that
mhm.
negativity towards Prabhupada's philosophical stance in many
Correct,
different cases, that was still there,
correct.
and he
Mhm,
started slowly talking about it.
mm,
So from my side, whenever the discussion would go in that direction, then I would constantly bring it back to uh, how
some other
grateful I feel. I would just
spiritual.
speak about old days
Mhm,
where he helped me out, and
mm,
how I'm grateful for it. I would
mm,
just steer the topic in that direction.
correct.
And now he started sending me some videos and some reading material, which are sort
Mm,
of not which may potentially create some mistrust or lack of faith in our own parampara. I just
correct.
avoided it. I didn't read it
Mm,
at all. I didn't read it. I didn't watch those videos. I just
Mm-hmm.
left it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that way, but I am still very grateful to him. And I definitely feel that there is no malice when he is trying to send this material.
Mm-hmm.
He genuinely has probably feels that the Sri Vaishnava path is something very valuable and bona fide. And
Mm-hmm.
as a younger brother, when he sensed that gratitude still there in my heart very strongly, he
Yes, I can
wanted
understand.
to, yeah, he wanted to share. But I expressed my gratitude sufficiently, but
Mm-hmm.
also showed my stance by indicating, by not responding to any of those videos or material that he sent me. So that way, I've expressed my gratitude, and at the same time, I indicated to him very clearly that I don't wish to discuss on this subject matter
Mm-hmm.
like that. So, so it is quite possible, and in many cases, it happens that the devotee who nurtured us or introduced us to Krishna consciousness at some point may go away out of Krishna consciousness, or they may choose a different sampradaya. In this case, this
Mm-hmm.
is still okay. This is perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in other cases, the person may give up Krishna consciousness only and become blasphemous. In such cases,
Mm-hmm.
we can show our gratitude by praying for that devotee like
Yes,
that.
yes, definitely, Prabhuji. We pray for we intensely pray for them because we have a deep gratitude for them because they have just given us what we don't deserve actually, and
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
the like very important in our life to give
Mhm.
us such a wonderful process.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that is very deep inside that gratitude for them because
yeah,
we can understand if we would not have got Krishna consciousness in our life, so how terribly we must have been like suffering in this material world. But
yeah, yeah,
gratitude is there. But
yeah.
like my question was like in your case, it was a different sampradaya. But
Mm-hmm,
here he is following the Gaudiya sampradaya,
mm-hmm,
and he is associated with like his teachers. And
mm-hmm.
if he's like wanting me to give some donation or something like that.
Oh, for the
So,
Gaudiya Math.
हाँ, Gaudiya Math or like some Gaushala or whatever, matlab, because and I had a very good relationship with him.
Mm-hmm,
So, and he knows that matlab, the- if I say him anything, so matlab, that relation is there actually.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
now,
if he is asking you for some donation for Goshala, and
yes,
if you have that gratitude in your heart, and
mm,
donation to a Goshala is definitely a good this thing. You can always do it. Whatever, if that is within your means to do, you can
mm.
always do. That's one way of showing your. I mean, just
Yes,
because.
definitely I have been doing that. But my question is like, matlab, how going forward, how should we like mm,
See, I
do?
mean, just the way, I mean, going forward, see, we do have many relationships um, where, which were there prior to we came to Krishna consciousness, and
Yes,
who have not accepted Krishna consciousness. It could be our
correct.
parents, it could be our siblings, it could be our little extended relatives. We have not kicked them away. Um, we still keep, I mean, at least I don't know. I, I do
Yes,
keep
yes,
some
yes,
affectionate touch with
correct.
all of them,
Yes,
uh, because that's their only way to come to Krishna consciousness.
yes, yes, very true.
So
And
that
because
we
of that,
do.
we many people like they get more closer to Krishna consciousness. They are favorable if we behave
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, if we like become fanatics, so then they never they will never come to this Krishna consciousness moment.
yeah,
Just by
yeah,
being favorable, being loving with them. Like
yeah,
we see the mood of Maharaj like with his own parents and with everybody whomsoever he meets.
yeah, yeah,
That that is the mm, that is there always.
yeah. So that's the way we can deal with it. See, what we have received is something invaluable. So
Yes.
maybe over a period of time they have come to not value it so much, but still we received that invaluable thing from them only. So we can always, if we have the means and that gratitude, means to show that means to reciprocate in a way that they are expecting, and if we have that gratitude still there, then we should definitely do it. Okay, bro.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for sharing your personal experience.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we will now, I don't see any further hands, so we will now move on to the part 2 of this presentation by Maharaj. I will just hold on for a second. I will just open the next file. Okay, so the next section, Maharaj discusses what is the means of developing that unprecedented love, Apurvarati. Of course, Sachinandan Maharaj is a very poetic personality, and sometimes the way he normally speaks also sounds very poetic, and now he is going to give a very poetic answer. But then please keep observing what he is trying to emphasize in presenting this very deep topic. So he is going to present now how do we develop this unprecedented affection towards Krishna and all these other things, 8 things which are connected to Krishna. So here he says, the first verse goes on to explain that we should love Vrajadam, the residents of Vraja, and finally Shri Shri Radha and Krishna, who are eternally youthful divine couple of Vraja. Krishna explains in the Bhagavatam how we can develop love for him. The wives of the Brahmanas came to him in the forest and offered a meal. So now Maharaj is going to explain to us how we can endeavor to develop affection towards Krishna by presenting a small section of the episode of the Yajna Patnis, the Brahmana Patnis with Krishna. So Krishna, Balram and the cowherd boys are hungry, so they want some food. So he sends some cowherd boys to beg from the Brahmanas who are offering a yajna. They drive them away. Then Krishna says, okay, go and ask their wives. They will definitely give. So when they went and asked the wives that Krishna and Balram are hungry, so can you please give some prasadam for them, some boga for them. So immediately all those Brahman Patnis picked up whatever boga they had and they ran to the forest to see Krishna, feed Krishna and please Krishna. So this is the prelude to the story, and now you please kindly listen to Maharaj's presentation on this. They saw Krishna standing in the forest. So this is the vision of the Brahmana Patnis when their first sight of Krishna. Till then they had only heard about Krishna from the fruit vendors, vegetable vendors, dairy product vendors who would come from Vrindavan. They would speak about Krishna, and they had heard so much about Krishna that internally they had developed deep love and affection for Krishna. So now they had an opportunity to actually personally see him. So they went there, and the first vision of Krishna, they saw Krishna standing in the forest twirling a lotus flower with one of his elbows resting on the shoulder of a friend. So you can try to visualize it while Maharaj is presenting. So Krishna is standing with one of his elbows resting on the shoulder of another friend, and on the other hand he was twirling a lotus flower. Krishna told them, just like I am twirling this lotus, I am twirling your heart. Can you feel it? So this is what Krishna asked them. Look, just like I'm twirling this lotus, I'm twirling your heart. Can you feel it? The Brahmana's wife said, yes. They wanted to walk with him through the forest where he was herding the cows, but that would have been a violation of social etiquette. They wanted to walk with him, but that would have been a violation of social etiquette. Highly aristocratic Brahmana ladies walking behind a cowherd boy, adoring him, throwing flowers and singing. Oh Krishna, oh Krishna. The whole society would have been scandalized, and Krishna did not wish this. So Krishna did not wish to create any scandals. So what did Krishna do? So he sent them home and he told them. So what did Krishna tell them? Shravanat darshanat dhyanan mayi bhavonu kirtanat na tata sannikarshena pratyata tato grihan. So he says, it is by hearing about me, Shravanat, seeing my deity form, Darshanat, meditating upon me, Dhyanat, and chanting my names and glories, Mai Bhavo Anukirtanat. So it is through these various kinds of activities, Na Tata Sannikarshena, and not by physical proximity, that one develops love for me. He says, look, the kind of love that, how did you develop this love towards me? You had never seen me before. You had never interacted with me before. You didn't have physical proximity with me. But just by hearing and meditating, and whenever you got an opportunity, you would sing my glories. So through these, it is through these activities that one develops love towards Krishna, not just by physical proximity. So therefore, pratiyata tato grihan, therefore go back to your homes, and don't worry, your love for me will not be compromised. You can continue to hear about me, you can continue to remember me, you can continue to serve my deity forms, and you can always chant my glories, and in doing that your love for me will keep on increasing, not just by physical proximity. Of course, this was an assurance that Krishna had to give to the Brahmana Patnis, because he didn't want to, as it is mentioned here, he didn't want to create a scandal. But of course, he didn't do this with the gopis, of course. But with the Brahman Patnis, he did this. Krishna is serious about these points. So when serious about these points means how by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, and Darshanam, taking darshan of the deity form, serving the deity form, how one can develop love for Krishna. He speaks the same verse to the gopis, but there is one difference. The Brahmana's wives returned home and the gopis did not return home. He spoke the same verse to the gopis. The gopis did not refuse to go home, but the Brahmana Patnis went back home. So again, Shravanad, it is by hearing about me that you develop love. So basically, we are now discussing how can we develop this Apurva Rati. We discussed this point, if you remember, in the first discussion only. Many of you shared wonderful reflections on this point about how we can develop that affection, attraction towards these 8 things. You all shared various points, but one point which many devotees shared was by hearing about these things. So that's exactly what Krishna also says. Shravanad, he starts with hearing. Women like to stare at men and men like to stare at women. Stare means take darshan. So do that to the deity. Then you will develop love for Krishna. Shravanad, Darshanad. He says that, we see so many things. Our ability to see 24 hours, not 24 hours, at least the time when we are not sleeping, we are constantly staring at something or other. in today's day and age, mostly to our computer or smartphone screen we are staring all the time. So he says that stare, do that to the deity. Then you will develop love for Krishna. Stare at him, meditate about Krishna, and chant his names and glories. Then you will develop love, and not by physical proximity. That's what he is indicating. Krishna rested his left cheek on his left shoulder to cause a vibrato in the ascending and descending modes of the ragas. So now you see two things he is indicating. Krishna's form is described, where he was resting his hand, how he was putting his flute to his lips, and of course he was playing various gamakas, so which means through the sound also. It was not just the form, but it was also the sound that he is being described. Krishna tilted his head to the left side. So Maharaj, I mean the way Maharaj is presenting, obviously Maharaj wants us to meditate on these words, actually, visualize Krishna doing all these things. At the same time, Krishna crossed his legs to assume a charming threefold bending form which enchanted the three worlds. Krishna tilted his neck. So, I mean, you can always say, Krishna played the flute and he told, go back home, hear about me, chant me, and you will be all right. But Maharaj, see the great details into which Maharaj goes, which means if we start meditating on these things and not take these details cheaply, then actually we can develop love towards Krishna. He rested his flute on his lower lip, and then he made his eyebrows dance to attract the attention of Subal and others to the skillfulness of his songs. Krishna was playing a flute with 7 holes which were covered by his fingers. Because Krishna never worked, his fingers were softer than those of other men. So, never worked. He didn't have to work. So his hands were soft like butter. But they were somewhat harder than his other limbs because his fingers would cover the holes of the flute. So the other bodily parts would not do any work, but the fingers were the hardest part of his body, because the only work that they would do, because of doing the work of covering the holes of the flute. That's why his fingers were the softest, hardest part of his body, because his other limbs would not do any work. Only the fingers would do the work, and that too the work of covering the holes of the flute. Krishna's body is as soft as yogurt when you touch it. It is cooling and so soft. In this mode, Krishna is there in this beautiful form, which we can see in the temples, playing his flute and enchanting the mind. We can take darshan of this form. Now, we have heard about Krishna, so now we should stare at Krishna with unblinking eyes. Stare means by take darshan. First, and then how to take darshan, Maharaj says. First, see his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada writes, the mind of the conditioned soul, on account of its association with the material energy from time immemorial, contains heaps of dirt in the form of desires to control material nature. This dirt is like a mountain, but a mountain can be shattered when hit by a thunderbolt. So Prabhupada writes this purport in the section on Kapila discussing about the form of the Lord, various parts of the Lord, limbs of the Lord. Dhyatur manas shamala shaila nisishta vajram. Dhyaye chiram bhagavatas charanaravindam, like the Krishna Kapila mentions in the 3rd canto, 28th chapter. So our mind is filled with unlimited mountains of vasanas, which we have accumulated over millions of lifetimes, and the And the lotus feet of the Lord acts as a thunderbolt which has the capacity to destroy this mountain of uh, unwanted material desires that we have accumulated in our heart over many lifetimes. Meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord acts like a thunderbolt on the mountain of dirt in the mind of the yogi. If a yogi wants to shatter the mountain of dirt in his mind, then he should concentrate on the lotus feet of the Lord and not imagine something void or impersonal. Because the dirt has accumulated like a solid mountain, one must meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for a quite long time. Huh? So that's why Kapila Dev says, Dhyayet chiram bhagavatas charanaravindam. Huh? So chiram means for a long time, because it is a huge mountain, and you know, lot of thunderbolts should come and shatter that mountain. For one who is accustomed to thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord constantly, however, it is a different matter. The devotees are so fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord that they do not think of anything else. So this is about those who are accustomed to taking darshan of the Lord's lotus feet. So basically he says, okay, initially we may not have that taste for taking darshan of the Lord. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. I mean, beyond that, it is too much. We may say like that. But Rupa Goswami says, Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pittopatapta Rasanasya na Rochikanu Kintu Adarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta Swadvi Kramad Bhavati Tad Gadamola Hantri. He says, yes, I understand that to take darshan of the Lord, to hear about him constantly, it may not be very tasty, it may not be very attractive, but kintu adarad anudinam kalusaiva jushta. If on a with great regularity and with great respect, even though we may not have taste, if we continue to do that activity, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Swadvi Kramad Bhavati. Gradually, one start developing taste for it. But many times, we have unrealistic expectations. We think first taste should come, then I will perform steady devotional service. So we expect ruchi before nishta. Nishta means steady devotional service. Ruchi means where we have great taste for the activities of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, like that. We say that, look, now I am not very steadily practicing devotional service, but the day I get taste, then you cannot stop me. 24 hours I will chant. But Rupa Goswami says, look, wait, the means of getting taste is regulated, regular, respectful practice of devotional service. Nishta should precede Ruchi. Ruchi will not come first. Nishta only comes first. So you will have to endeavor to steadily practice devotional service, and by that steady practice of devotional service, Krishna will reward that with taste. That's what he is indicating here. Kintu adarad anudinam kalusaiva jushta. If with great respect, regularity, and on a regular basis, and the regulated practice of devotional service actually gives rise to mercy of Krishna in the form of taste for that practice, like that. Srila Prabhupada states that if you are a yogi, you take advantage of this process of smaranam and meditate on the lotus feet for a long time. But the bhakti yogis, which is us, take special advantage of the process of hearing and chanting in this sambandha, in a relationship where we think of Krishna and make our chanting so wonderful that we feel some devotional feelings. So he says that meditate on our relationship with Krishna, like that. Then Maharaj writes, there is a ladder in our lives. we can go down in the direction of kama, become degraded, sad, disappointed, frustrated, and keep taking birth after birth. This is one direction. Or we can go to the same ladder of desire, but go up to the level of love, to the beginning states of gratitude or appreciation of Krishna, feeling closeness to the Lord. So we have a choice. Do we want to climb up the ladder from where we are, or do we want to climb down? Hmm? Uh, then we feel some bhakti, and finally some spiritual energy will really start working intensely in us, and then there will be ruchi and asakti and bhava someday. Hmm? Satam prasangat mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kata tad joshanadashu apavargavartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishati. Hmm? This is also Kapila Dev's teachings to Mother Devahuti. He says, Satam prasangat mama virya samvido. So by constant hearing, beyond the stage of anarthana vritti, when you reach the stage of nishta, we start realizing these pastimes. This is nishta. He says this is the meaning of mama virya samvido, realization of pastimes. Then he says, bhavanti hrit karna rasayana kata. Then those very same pastimes start becoming nectarian beverage for our ears and heart. Hrit karna rasayana. This indicates the stage of ruchi. Hmm? So, and then tad joshanadashu apavargavartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishati. And when we continue to hear beyond the stage of ruchi, then gradually we go through the stages of asakti, bhava, and prema, like that he indicates. But so then we feel some bhakti, and finally some spiritual energy will really start working intensely in us, and then there will be ruchi and asakti and bhava someday. But we can start now, and it's only a matter of which direction we look. Do we want to look up, or do we want to look down? That's what Maharaj is indicating here. Do we want to look towards the material energy, or do we want to look towards Guru, towards Vrajadam, towards the Brahmanas, towards the Vaishnavas, and all these personalities we have heard about in Manasiksha? Where do we want to look at? So basically, that's why I asked you to write down, what we could do to develop attraction towards each one of these personalities, uh, uh, so that we start climbing the ladder up. Uh, if we Because affection we need to develop, attachment we need to develop, because that is the nature of the soul. So if we don't get attached to these things, if we don't endeavor to get attached to these things, then our millions of lifetimes that we have spent in this material world, we have developed natural attachment to things of this material world that will take over, and we will unconsciously start climbing down the ladder. That is what here he is indicating. Train the mind to look to these residents of Vraja, the Vaishnavas, unto our Diksha mantras, the holy name, and we will see without any doubt that we will become free from this kama, this selfish desire that only makes us miserable and disappointed. So we have this experience, we all have this experience, that whenever uh, Veda dukkhatmakam kaman parityage api anishwarah, we knew that whenever we endeavored to engage in some sense gratification, it eventually led to misery, either in the form of guilt, or in the form of frustration, or in the form of disappointment, eventually. uh, So, uh, but still, because of the vasanas that we have accumulated over last many lifetimes, sometimes these urges could be very strong. mm. So the means of getting over this thing is gradually endeavor in the direction of developing attraction towards these 8 things. So then gradually attraction or attachment to these 8 things will replace or displace that lust towards material things that are so deep rootedly present within our heart. When in the association of devotees, something happens. A sadhu is someone who practices bhajan and who helps us do bhajan also. That is a sadhu. So when we come together with proper devotees who practice Krishna consciousness and who will preach to us nicely, I can guarantee we will faint when we smell the fragrance of the cup full of honey that will be opened in their association. So this is, I mean, we might think that this is actually some poetic exaggeration that Maharaj is doing here. If this was just poetic exaggeration, then the uh, uh, devotees who have had the opportunity to personally take darshan of the Supreme Lord would not pray for the association of devotees. Bhaktim muhu pravahatam tvaime prasango bhuyadananta mahatam amalashayanam yenanja solbanamuru vyasanam bhavabdim neshye bhavat gunakatamrutapanamattaha. Dhruva Maharaj prays. After taking darshan of the Lord, when the Lord asks, "What do you want?" he says, "Please give me association of devotees, in whose hearts bhakti just flows like a unstoppable river, and who are completely pure-hearted, and in their association, just being intoxicated in hearing and chanting your holy name and your holy pastimes, I will easily cross over this ocean of samsara, no problem." So that is what he is indicating. So it is true that even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you see when such Vaishnavas meet, they would constantly faint in each other's association. And that's what Maharaj is citing here. And this is not something which he is presenting, which he has not practiced. For those of you who know His Holiness Sachidanand Swami Maharaj, every year he takes a few months, at least a month during Kartik, to come and associate with his god brothers in Vrindavan in the Govardhan ashram, where they, all these god brothers, His Holiness Jayadvait Swami Maharaj, Sachinandan Maharaj, and previously Tamal Krishna Maharaj, then Giriraj Maharaj, then so many such devotees they used to come together, and they used to have such wonderful sangha discussing Krishna Katha, having kirtans and bhajans together, doing Giriraj Parikrama together, and you know essentially trying to develop that affection towards Gurau, Goshte, Goshtalayishu, Sujane, Bhusuragane, Somantre, Srinamni, Vrajanava Dvandva Sharane. This is the process. So Maharaj, when he says he is not exaggerating, I am sure he must be presenting his own personal experience, personal realization. I can guarantee that we will faint when we smell the fragrance of the cup full of honey that will be opened in their association. So ultimately, that is the uh, point that he is making here. In the association of materialists, our heads turn downwards and down we go. In the association of sadhus, our head turns upwards and up we go. It is that simple. So basically, everything boils down to the association of Vaishnavas. If we are in the association of Vaishnavas, we are safe. Of course, association means, as we discussed the other day, Sajatiya Ashe Snigde Sadhu Sangha Swatovare. Association of those devotees who are like-minded, who are affectionate, who are very intent on progressing in spiritual life, and who are also more advanced than us. In that kind of association, we actually can feel tangible uh, uh, advancement in spiritual life. Actually, the entire universe is full of miseries, and therefore the inhabitants of this material universe are always shedding tears out of intense grief. I think there is some problem with cut paste. I think this must have come in the previous slide. It has by mistake come here. I'm sorry. there is a great ocean of I'm sorry, he's again quoting this purport of Srila Prabhupada in that very same verse, 3rd canto, 28th chapter, Kapila Dev's teachings. So where he says that Shokashru Sagara Vishoshana Matyudaram Sammohanaya Rachitam Nijamaya Yasya Bhrumandalam Munikrite Makaradvajasi. In that same series of verses, this is a different verse where it talks about the glance of the Supreme Lord, how the glance of the Supreme Lord is capable of drying oceans of tears that one would shed due to suffering in this material world. So he's quoting a different verse, I'm sorry. So there is a great ocean of water, Prabhupada writes, made from such tears. But for those who surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ocean of tears created by Kama and Krodha, the all-devouring enemies of this world, is at once dried up. We need only see the charming smile of the Supreme Lord. In other words, the bereavement of material existence immediately subsides when we see his charming smile. So basically, if you remember, the context was Maharaj was discussing about how while taking darshan of the deity form, we have to start from the lotus feet and gradually move up to the lotus face, and that's what we have been discussing. Now Maharaj has very he has now come to the face of the charming smile of the Lord, like that. So basically that brings us to the end of this commentary by Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj, where he has very nicely discussed that how through this hearing, chanting, taking darshan of the form of the Lord, these are like tangible ways, and all doing all of this in the association of devotees can create an avenue for tangible progress in our spiritual lives. So this is a very realistic way of actually developing that attraction towards Krishna and these things and people connected to Krishna. Maharaj has given a very tangible way that how association is the key in which can open the doors for developing this apurva rati towards these 8 things, like that. So we still have some time. If there are any quick comments, questions, you can please raise your hands and we can discuss some time. Anyone, would you like to raise your hands if you have any quick comments, questions, discussions that you would like to have? You can please raise your hands. Okay. So I don't see any hands up. So I think we will, I will not start a new topic today. We will not start the next section, which will be next week. We will be discussing from His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj commentary. It's of course a long commentary, but Maharaj keeps it quite absorbing for us to stay in touch with the subject matter. So if okay, anyone would like to share his, of course few devotees have shared. Are you okay with this format that we have been following? Of course, because in this format it's going to take a very long time before we can actually complete this course. It may take more than a year also, but if you are okay with it, we will continue in this space, at this space only. Or if you are not okay with it, then I can skip few commentaries. We can take limited number of commentaries and we can quickly complete the course. So you can please share your thoughts on that. We still have 5 minutes left. Yes, Radha Damodar Prabhu, I am unmuting you too. Haribol. We can't hear you, Prabhu.
You're able to hear me, Prabhu?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Now we lost your voice. Hare Krishna.
The format is perfectly fine.
Prabhu, it's not very clear. Your voice is not very clear.
Is it Hare Krishna, Prabhu? Is it okay?
Now we can. Yeah, now we can.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I think there is some problem with my network. So
Okay.
the format is perfectly acceptable to us. It is wonderful that we can have a long association with
Okay, bro.
you
Thank
in
you.
this class. I wanted to ask you another question.
Yes, bro. Your voice is still breaking in between.
Uh, oh, I will have to type it then. I will type it then. Okay.
Yes, bro. You can type. No problem. We'll wait for your question. Okay. Anyone else would like to share something before we wind up for the day? So I'll just wait for Radha Damodar Prabhu's question. So we will take that question and then we will end today's discussion. Uh, okay. You mentioned that when someone touches our feet, we receive some karma. Yes. No, I didn't say that, Prabhu. Maharaj does say that, but uh, here we should take. Okay, this is okay. Good. I think where you're, I can sense where you're coming at. Maharaj did use the word karma, but we should understand that it is not exactly karma. We don't get into the if someone touches our feet and we accept it. It's not that we are karmically affected, but it has the potential to affect our consciousness. We can come in touch with their consciousness and our consciousness can get degraded. So otherwise we should not think that we actually get karmically affected by that, even though for you know, in our normal usage we may use such a terminology, but the reality is that we don't get karmically affected, but it definitely has the potential to affect our consciousness. That is for sure. That's what. Is that okay, bro? Yeah. My question is, do we get karma when someone offers obeisances to us from the front or behind us? No, definitely not. I already answered that question. I mean, if behind you someone is offering you obeisance, you didn't notice it. Nothing happens because of that. When you come to know, then you offer them obeisances back. That's all. You know, we don't have to worry about it. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for your patient listening. So it was a nice experience having your association. So hoping to have your association next week also. And in the coming weeks also. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad ki jai. Shri Manas Siksha ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you.